Cranky Curmudgeon's Corner. My name's Paul Thomas, and with us tonight, we have one of our regular panelists, Thaddeus Paul Hamas. Hello, Thad.
How you doing?
Real good. Daniel Thomas. There's Daniel, and there's Pino. Joining us for the first time is Tyler Titus.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Tyler. And again, from Maryland, we have Mike Bernard. Hello, Mike.
Hey there.
Okay, we originally planned to talk about the transition, but now the main concern for us and the American people is the insurrection. The first question I had originally planned to ask cited Section 595 of Title 18 of the U.S. Code, which states, whoever being a person employed in any administrative position by the United States uses his official authority for the purpose of interfering with or affecting the nomination or election of any candidate for the office of president, vice president, etc., shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. But after the rally inciting the attack on the Capitol, Sections 2483, 2484, and 2485, which Thaddeus is quite familiar with because we looked at those together, that came into play because those sections address the use of violence to attempt to overthrow the federal government. But now I want to throw out another criminal possibility, the felony murder statute, which basically states that if you are convicted of a felony which resulted in someone's death, even if you didn't directly kill the person, you can be charged with that murder. Donald Trump conspired to send a violent law to the Capitol to stop Congress from certifying an election that he lost, a felony. Capitol policeman Brian Sicknick was killed by the mob. In addition to the Title 18 sections listed above, should Trump be charged with the death of Officer Sicknick? Mike Bernard, what do you think about that?
You would come to me first. Oh, man. What I have to do is separate my own personal feelings about the current president from this question. I would say, I hate to sound like a cop-out, but I need more information on the law before I could give a definitive answer.
You mean on the felony murder law?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's fair. Basically, I got most of my information from watching The Closer and Law and Order, but I know it is on the books. Thaddeus, what say you about the felony murder statute, and should Trump be charged with Sicknick's murder?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and have an emotional answer to that because my money is on, if there is anything he can be charged with, he should be charged with it. I would like to see that no indictment of a sitting president custom vacated and just see them throw the book at him. Because as we have seen in last year's attempt at removal by the first the first of his two
Impeachments.
Thank you. You just throw one little charge at him, and well, maybe that's just too narrow. This is a man who will break any law, regulation, custom, or anything. He seems to be bent on breaking every law he can find. So since he has done a lot of things in one little speech that he gave on the 6th, he ought to be charged with everything he's done.
Okay. Dan, what do you think about the charging him with murder of Officer Sicknick?
Well, much like you, and I guess this runs in families, I get my knowledge of these laws from TV shows and procedural dramas. I don't think that a murder charge for Officer Sicknick will stick. I don't think he could be convicted of it, not because he didn't do it, not because he shouldn't be held accountable, but I don't think you'll be able to convince a jury that Officer Sicknick died directly as a result of the riot that he incited. I think that there will be criticism of Officer Sicknick and how he performed his duty. I mean, the man was beaten to death, but with a fire extinguisher while protecting lawmakers. He was pretty heroic. But I don't think you'll be able to draw a clear line from Donald Trump to the death of the officer. So I don't think it will happen. I do think that Officer Sicknick definitely deserves justice, and I think that the people who were actually wielded the fire extinguisher need to have a very lengthy prison sentence, but I don't think you'll be able to convict Donald or Junior or Giuliani or that congressman who was speaking with them directly of his murder. Now, inciting a riot, that is also a crime, and that is definitely a line you can draw because they turned a rally into a riot.
Okay, a little aside from that, I believe that the most recent federal execution that Trump has he's been going on a spate of executions, was a young man, a young black man, who was a driver of the getaway car of a bank robbery where there was one of the people killed, and he wasn't even in the bank. He was just executed. Okay, so I just wanted to throw that out. Tyler, with that, what do you think about this?
Reflecting on it, I think that history would show us that very seldom are wealthy, white, cisgender men held accountable for the crimes that they commit or had a hand in doing. As much as I would love to see the justice system hold him accountable, that would first, I think, require me to believe in the justice system, period. And that's not where I'm willing to stock a whole lot of faith of my own. And I think it's unfortunate. Now, I think that if this were President Obama, I think that you could get a lot of people to turn, and that's solely because of the color of Obama's skin. But given what we have and the evidence that we have to stack against him, and if we had the compounding evidence that we've had for all the other crimes that this man has committed, was not able to hold him accountable for any of that, and there was very clear lines. I have to agree with what Daniel said, is as much as I do think he played a direct hand in this, I don't think that our justice system is set up in a way that would ever hold him accountable.
Okay, before I let you go on that, I want to follow up with the idea that one of the reasons why Trump didn't get charged with any of the crimes, well, there are a couple reasons. One, Jeff Sessions, William Barr, and the second was this memo that was written way back in the Clinton era that can't charge a sitting president, can't indict a sitting president. In 8 days, he's not going to be the president anymore. So I just want to throw that out. Anyway, the ease with which the mob breached the Capitol raised a lot of eyebrows regarding a police force that has an enormous budget. There has been talk of an extensive congressional investigation into that, but what you've seen of the video footage, do you think the mob had inside help from the Capitol Police or even from sympathetic members of Congress or staff? We'll start this off with you, Thaddeus. What's your thoughts about the possibility of inside help?
Well, I was listening to some discussion of this a few hours ago, and it was mentioned that there were 2 members of Congress who addressed the rally before they went to, before the rally moved on to attack the Congress. So, that's pretty inside, if you ask me. But there has also been a lot of print about the fact that there were, there was a whole lot of resistance from the Pentagon about bringing in troops to help the police. We know from the Maryland governor's experience, which he related on TV, that the the Maryland congressman called the governor to ask if he can send Maryland troops in. And he said, well, he can't without an order from the Pentagon. And he was on the phone to the Pentagon for an hour and a half before they could find somebody who would authorize him to send Maryland's National Guard into DC. So that was, somebody had to have an order from the top saying, we're not going to interfere with these demonstrators. So, I think very much if they really probe into this, they're going to find there was an inside job going on.
Tyler, what do you, any ideas on, or any opinions, I should say, because we really don't know the scoop about an inside job?
I think if you're going to put police and Trump in the same sentence, you can just assume that there was a connection. He has the endorsement of the Fraternal Order of Police. Like, he has the biggest union backing him, who have been out in support of his efforts and stand solidly behind him. And to say and to insinuate that there isn't at least at some level high up connection. Do I think that it was necessarily all the Capitol Police officers that were involved in it? Absolutely not. I don't think that they would have went to work that day knowing what was going to happen to them. But I do think that there are people above them that knew, and you can watch a lot of the videos, and that's not a whole lot of resistance that they had, and it makes me sick to my stomach that we have sworn officers who to protect, and they literally let their fellow officers take the brunt. There are other officers that knew, and no one will convince me otherwise, that this wasn't going to happen. And they let their other officers die. They just moved out of the way so that could happen.
So you think, yes, there's somebody
Yes.
in the hierarchy that knew about it and was complicit with it.
Yes.
Okay, Mike, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. There had to have been some kind of assistance behind the scenes. At what level, I don't know. I suspect that some of the occupants' lackeys were involved somehow. Did the order come directly from the president? I don't know.
No, it had to be somebody congressional, the Capitol Police.
Possibly, yeah, and that's it. We just don't know, what are the connections there as to where did the idea come from to offer the assistance. I think that was Mo Brooks was the guy from Alabama that was so awful at that rally. It won't
That was Mo
surprise me if
Brooks.
it comes from, if there was a connection through him. I don't know what was up with that guy, but I mean, that's somebody that I'm pretty sure there could be something there. Also, but here's another thought. Unfortunately, if you want to call it that, in that, amongst those people, some of them are very intelligent and savvy. They can find almost any information on the internet. I mean, we think a lot of our information is private. I doubt that. I have a feeling that somebody could find the layout of the Capitol on the internet somehow, whether the dark web or somewhere out there. It wouldn't surprise me if somebody could get access to that. Now, how they got it, is it on a free website or a free web, or is it, did it have to be provided by somebody on the inside? That I don't know. So I think there was something there. I look forward to finding out what connections there were. So those extensive congressional investigations, I hope, bear some fruit.
Yeah. Dan, what do you think about the inside job possibility?
Well, I think we need extensive hearings with lots and lots of high-end people testifying under oath. I mean, we had Hillary Clinton go back 12 times for Benghazi stuff, and we know pretty much what happened there by this point. I think that same process absolutely needs to be repeated here. We know that at least a couple of Capitol Police officers were complicit in letting the rioters in. They just posed for pictures with them. We have video of them taking down barriers to let people in. And as Tyler pointed out, one of their fellow officers died as a result of that. Those two officers are currently suspended, and I assume they will be fired in short order, but I think the investigation needs to go forward. I have not read the article myself. I just saw it shortly before we started, but the former head of the Capitol Police did give an interview to Washington Post yesterday, and he basically is pointing the fingers at the Sergeant at Arms of the House and the Sergeant at Arms of the Senate, saying that he asked for more support, military support, and they said no because they didn't like the look after the optics of everything that happened this summer. And you can't tell me that these people give a shit about optics after they use tear gas to clear nonviolent protesters out of a church so that Donald could have a picture taken. I also do believe that if there was not congressional help, at least some Congress people were taking advantage of it. Maybe they did not realize the severity of the situation, but Lauren Boebert from Colorado, I think that's how you say her name, she was tweeting the location of the speaker during the rioting. And if there was anyone that a pro-Trump mob who happened to have the supplies to erect a gallows in front of the Capitol would be after, it is Nancy Pelosi. So I definitely think that there was intent there to lead the rioters to high-profile targets. Let's call them that. Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mike Pence, all people that Donald Trump wasn't real happy with, who were all in that building.
The same day of the riot, after control of the building was reestablished, Congress was called back into session where 139 Republican representatives voted against certifying the election. Most, if not all, of these same Republicans added their names to an amicus brief of a Texas lawsuit objecting to the results of the Pennsylvania vote. Overturning this election has been Trump's main activity, that and golf, since election night. These Republicans and a few in the Senate have been assisting Trump in this effort. Should there be any consequences for this seditious behavior, and if so, what do you suggest should be done? Tyler, let's start with you. What do you think should be done to these people who voted against certifying the election, if anything, and also signed on to the amicus brief from the Texas lawsuit contesting the Pennsylvania vote?
So this is where I get torn, like what I think should be done and what I suspect will actually be done.
How about give us both?
What I think should be done is they should be unseated, and I think that I don't think, because they've clearly demonstrated that they don't stand for democracy. They stand for they've party aligned, and they're not actually out to represent anybody other than their own, their agenda. But what do I think will happen is I think that there will be another crisis and another diversion, and we'll forget the names, or there'll be voter suppression and they will win the seats because of just the way that we've drawn the lines, is what I think will probably happen. People forget why names are popular. They forget to study before they go in and vote. And they're like, oh, I recognize that name. It doesn't matter if it was because of the crimes that they committed or the unjust things that they did. When they recognize a name, those votes tend to, or those names tend to go through. But what I think should happen is that they should not be permitted to serve to the office that they were elected to.
Okay, Dan, what you think and what you expect? What you think should happen and what you expect to happen?
I kind of echo Tyler's sentiment 100%. I will never forget the name Mike Kelly. My representative stood in front of Congress and tried to throw away my vote. So I will never, ever forget that name. And I will make sure that everyone who can hear me knows that Mike Kelly did that to me and the people that he represents. However, I do think that he will face, and the rest of them will face, no real consequence. What I think should happen is they're all screaming about voter fraud without any evidence because it didn't happen. I think that that Pelosi and Schumer should require that they present the evidence that they have of voter fraud to their various houses of Congress, and if they have no evidence to produce, then they should face censure at the limit or at the absolute minimum, and be expelled and possibly criminally charged with lying to Congress. I was listening to a podcast a little while ago where a former aide to Hillary Clinton was talking about a political price that Hillary made people pay when she was a senator. And that was, she was very proud of having bipartisan support on tons of bills that she was championing. And there was one Republican who ran a real dirty campaign against someone else. And so she refused to work with him, made him a personal pariah to her. And that was a point of moral fortitude that she had. She would not deal with somebody that she believed was truly corrupt and irredeemable. I think that the people who voted against the election, I think we need to look at the Mike Kellys and the Ted Cruzes and the Josh Hawleys, and Kelly Loeffler is done now. But all of those who made that protest, I think our good reps and senators should refuse to work with them. They should not take up any legislation that is important to these people. They should make them pariahs. They should exclude them from everything and punish them as much as they can, because we know there will be no official punishment.
How about like removing them from committee assignments?
That's a great place to start, and the rules of the House and Senate are a little bit arcane to me, so I don't know if you can remove them from everything. I think you have to sit on some committees, but you can certainly remove them from the good ones where they want to be.
Who is that guy from Iowa, that knucklehead, that white supremacist from Iowa? He kept making these white supremacist statements, and they removed him from committee assignments.
I don't know who you're referring to, but I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah. Okay. Mike.
Oh yeah.
Anything should happen to these people?
Yeah. I mean, Daniel said it very well. What I would love to see: removal and prosecution. What will probably happen? The most cynical thought is nothing. What I hope will at least happen is censure and, again, removal from hum committees or complete removal of committees. The concern, though, is you're talking about 138 people or 139 people. That's almost 30% of the entire House. So what are you going to do with all of them if you remove them all from committees? Will the committees suffer because there won't be enough people? And again, I don't know the rules either, like number of people and so forth that have to be on committees. But the point is,
if they remove the Republicans, they're not going to suffer. They're going to get work done.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, but I mean, punishment absolutely has to happen because this is exceptional. I mean, disagreement of policies and fighting for them back and forth between parties, no problem. But this, they tried to undermine the will of the majority of voters. This is not an assault just against each other in Congress. This is an assault against the entire nation. And that cannot go unpunished. These fools who put this lawsuit against Pennsylvania and who objected to Pennsylvania, remember, I come from Pennsylvania originally, so I was personally insulted too, even though I haven't gotten to vote in Pennsylvania in 20 plus years, 27 years. But, I just want to say, who the hell are you people? Pennsylvania can handle their own affairs, thank you. And even in years when Republicans win their districts or the whole state, fine. We didn't go crazy. We, meaning Democrats and others who weren't thrilled with the last presidential election, we didn't go through all this. We didn't scream voter fraud and try to overturn the democracy of our nation. We accepted it. They need to do at least that minimum and be punished in some way.
Thaddeus, I'm sure you have some creative thought in mind about what to do about these charlatans. What is it?
Well, I think everybody has already weighed in with all the possible punishments that could happen, short of mass beheadings, which I think would be a little extreme even in this case.
It's not off the table, though.
It's not off the table. But I think Mike pointed out a minute ago that they are protected by their multitude. When we're talking about, perhaps a quarter of the membership of the House of Representatives, if you escort them off the floor, it may be difficult to get any business done in the House of Representatives, because you're going to have to wait until all of those states elect new representatives and send them in. And, right now we don't have time for that. Censure, I think, is the most realistic thing that we can hope for, although because of the numbers of them, going through 138 censure processes is another big, long, drawn-out thing. Not doing one. If there were one or two people, I would say, oh yeah, throw the book at them, get them off the floor, get them into jail. But we can't mass produce this, so we may be stuck with people who ultimately go unpunished, and that's a tragedy.
Democrats in Congress are suggesting that Pence invoke the 25th Amendment, or they will begin impeachment proceedings again. And Mike just brought up this breaking news item about Mitch McConnell being for impeachment at this point.
What's the one Harry Potter movie where all those black ghosts suddenly just descend on everyone? That's what I'm thinking of right now. And they're all going to descend on the current occupant of the White House. Well.
So I'm asking the panel, let's start with you, Tyler. How do you see this playing out?
I think that I would love to see an impeachment. I think that because of what that will happen, what that means for the future. I think that it's a little too late. But I mean, at this move, I'll take whatever we can get to stop future events from happening, and I think that it sends a nice message. I don't know to who, or if I guess backing myself up. No matter what message we send at this point, or no matter what happens, those who have supported and who are staunch in their beliefs that led them to engage in what happened, is no matter what happens, nothing is going to shake them. It's not. I mean, they're committed to their stance, and they've got to have a lot of coming to Jesus moments that probably aren't going to happen in their lifetime, unless like they were like in a spot and that's all they got to do was learn about why that this was impacting other people. However, that being said, I do also think that this is a huge Hail Mary throw up for many people who are running and their seats will be up, that this is an attempt to keep some of their voters still on their side. And I think it's really convenient that we're seeing resignations pour in, and that we're now seeing the bans from social media. I think that this is a last ditch effort because people are seeing party bail, and that this is a way to keep some of their voters and people on their side.
Okay, just to make a point there about the futility of the exercise, if Trump is convicted by the Senate, there's also a rule regarding impeachment that he will not be eligible for any further federal office. So he won't be able to run for president in 2024 if he's convicted in the Senate and they go ahead and do just a simple majority vote, whereas the conviction for impeachment takes 2/3. Mike, what do you think about that?
The 25th Amendment, well, it's not going to happen. The impeachment, I'm glad to see it moving. I'm frankly shocked and surprised that Mitch McConnell went there. That'd be the last thing I imagine, but bring it on. Yeah, we have to get rid of that element in our service society. And when I say service society, I mean people elected to office who are supposed to serve the people. That has to go. And so I'm sorry Mitch McConnell didn't do this 2 years ago, or when was impeachment? January, right?
Last year, just a year ago.
Okay, I'm sorry that didn't happen then, but okay. The fact that it's happening now, I guess I should just fail to be surprised.
Thaddeus, I have to say that I am pleased and surprised about Mitch's statement. But what do you think about it?
Well,
About the whole impeachment process?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that the 25th Amendment option was dead on arrival, I think, due to testicular deficiency on the part of the vice president. The impeachment would have the better effect of having its effect follow the president out of the White House. That is, that he will suffer consequences after he is out of office, including not being allowed to run again, which is about his last Hail Mary hope now. So I am also pleased and surprised to hear that Mitch McConnell is on board with impeachment. I hope that this means that he will move with the same kind of speed that he moved on getting that last Supreme Court appointment put together in the face of a couple of days. If so, maybe we actually can see this cancer excised from our government before the end of its reign.
Dan?
Mike Pence is like someone, he's like an abuse victim who's not ready to leave yet. So he's not going to invoke the 25th Amendment. I'm sure he was very angry that his wife and daughters were in the Capitol when Trump pointed a mob that wanted to hang him at the Capitol building, but he's never going to turn on Trump. Trump rescued him from political irrelevance and made him the vice president. That's as high as he's going to go. He might have some hope of running in 24, but he's not going to turn on Trump directly. Note to any Republican primary candidates in 2024 who may be listening, use that against Mike Pence. Trump is just a loser. But he's not going to turn on him. The impeachment, Trump wanted to make history, so he'll be the first president to be impeached twice in his first term. That's pretty epic. And
possibly the only one ever convicted.
Yeah. I don't know if there's going to be enough support to convict him, even if it happens retroactively. But last time we had one Republican vote to do it. This time, I'm sure Toomey is going to vote to remove him. Murkowski has already said she wants him gone. Susan Collins just won her re-election. She does not need to worry about paying a political price, and she's pissed. So we're going to see more people going against him. I don't know if we're going to have enough. But
17. They need 17 Republicans to get to 67.
I don't know if we were going to have the 17, and I think Joe Manchin, the new most powerful person in Congress, is definitely wishy-washy on the subject, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm pretty sure that there's enough to send a message to Trump and his supporters that this is not acceptable behavior. Whether they get that, they're already blaming Antifa for, everything that happened. Yeah, I've been laughing about that for weeks. Like Antifa beat that police officer to death, and Antifa erected a gallows, and Antifa just had a car full of pipe bombs. Yeah, that sounds very much like leftist protesters and Black Lives Matter people.
According
But
to some news reports, there seems to be a lot of internet activity indicating that the rioters are not done planning more events in the District of Columbia. Are you concerned about more violence occurring at the inauguration? Dan, we'll start with you. Do you believe there's going to be more violence at the inauguration on January 20th?
I think this time law enforcement is ready for it, and Biden and Harris have both stated since the insurrection occurred that they are not afraid and they are not concerned and they are going to lead by example. But there's also been reports of planned violent armed rallies in every state capital between now and Inauguration Day. I watched a Facebook Live with Brian Sims today on my lunch break where he was explaining yes, he's beautiful, where he was explaining the security measures that are in place around the Pennsylvania Capitol and that he does not feel unsafe there. But there's definitely going to be more violent actions. These people have come out into the light. It's no longer socially unacceptable to be a white nationalist and misogynist, and we need to put shame back into their mindset and have them hide again. But they're out in the open now, so they're going to keep on playing with their guns where we can all see it, hoping that that's going to make us afraid.
Mike, Dan mentioned the state capitals. What about the national capital? You think that we need to be worried? He thinks law enforcement, Dan thinks law enforcement is going to be prepared this time. So what do you think?
I think so. From what I've read, up to 15,000 troops will be available on inauguration day in Washington.
That's just the National Guard, 15,000 National Guard.
Right.
You've got all the police.
Right. So I'm sure there's going to be a good, good solid ring of people guarding well. That said, I wish Joe Biden would go inside and have the oath and be safe. But, I understand why he's doing it too, trying to project normalcy and bravery. I get that. But, what I'm concerned about with the state capitol insurrection possibilities, if these terrorists can't get into state capitals to cause trouble, they can cause trouble around the surrounding neighborhoods. They could go to, a thing that concerns me is they could try to stir up trouble in areas where more people of color live, and then try to initiate some kind of riots or problems there. The other concern I have is that there's some people who are going to say, we're freaking, sick of your crap. You get out of our town, and they're going to go after them. Other people who are anti-terrorists are going to go after these people that are coming there. And so I'm a little concerned there is going to be some bloodshed somewhere. But yeah, back to Washington. I think it's going to be safer, but it's going to be tense.
Tyler, how do you feel about Harrisburg and your home state capital, Harrisburg, as well as Washington, D.C.?
I am worried. I am worried that this has incited or given permission. I think it's given permission for people to be more open with the hate and their animosity. And I wish, I don't want anyone to get harmed. And so there's this, I will tell you, there's like this internal conflict that rolls around inside of me around how much I wish we would protect people the same way we protected some of these buildings. And that what a shame about the amount of resources that we will be using because of hatred that this man has allowed and brought to the forefront. Like it always existed, and we knew that this hate was there, and especially those of us who are lived in an oppressed part of our community. But to have so much that could be coming out and coming forward to help those who are in need, especially right now during a pandemic, is I don't think that we've taken a moment to like swallow what he's caused us, like the chaos that he has caused, even on his way out, and the good that we could have done with that many people and that amount of resources, the help we could have caused. But now we will be defending, and I don't want anyone to get hurt, and we should be. But like that, it's just not lost on me, like the amount that he's taking, even on his way out.
It's all about him. It's
Mm-hmm.
all about him. Thaddeus, how concerned are you about further violence, especially Inauguration Day?
Well, leading up to Inauguration Day, I think that it was out on the air today that the FBI has gotten word that they are passing the word to have violent demonstrations against every state capital in the country on the 17th. Well, it's nice of them to have it a couple of days ahead of time, but that is, it's impossible to predict what kind of activities are going to happen in 50 different state capitals at once. So, and if that succeeds, that's going to be quite a coup for them. Although we don't call a coup anymore, unless it comes from the coup d'etat part of France. Otherwise, it's just sparkling white insurrection. But I had to get that in there somewhere. But
white nationalism. It's sparkling white nationalism.
Sparkling white nationalism. But now I fully expect them to put their worst foot forward on the 20th. They are going to try to do something. They are going to try to disrupt the inauguration next Wednesday. I very much hope that even though he is still president, Donald Trump does not have any kind of a say in what defense plans are put into motion on that day to thwart them. I would rather hope that the Capitol of the United States on January 20th will look like it looked last July when the BLM people showed up. That's about it.
Donald lost all his Twitter accounts, they claim, permanently. How will that affect his post-presidency, Thad? What do you think about Donald losing Twitter?
Well, he sure is mad about it. It's kind of interesting because that was a big discussion on the 11th. Is that the day that we're talking right now? The people on Fox News were bloviating about these, the Twitter company and the Facebook company are, violating their constitutional mandates by exercising, by curbing people's free speech. And I thought about this, and their companies, they have a right to curb any speech that they want on the platform of their company. Heaven knows there are enough companies who have squashed the free speech of their members who have talked about unionizing.
Well, how many letters have you written to the Baltimore Sun that they didn't print? That company had the right to stifle your free speech.
Sure. So the complaint that putting him off of Twitter and off of Facebook is stifling his free speech. He is the president of the United States at the moment, and if he calls the news people and says, I have something to say, the whole country will hear what he has to say. What will happen to him after he is president?
How will his loss of Twitter affect his post-presidency?
He's going to have to pay to make his voice heard, and he sure isn't used to that.
Dan, you think it's going to have any effect
Oh, I think it's going to have a huge effect. Deplatforming people does have an impact. We all remember, I can never pronounce his name, Milo Yiannopoulos, the Breitbart alt-right gay guy who was just horrible about everything and everyone. And then when he got kicked off of the mainstream social media, he almost completely evaporated and went away financially. His opinions disappeared. He was just gone. Now, Donald Trump is a symptom. He is not the disease. As much as we would like to think, as soon as the bad orange man goes away, everything's going to be back to normal. He is just a symptom of a larger problem. But if you can't use the popular, easy to use platforms to make your voice heard when your voice is that of a Nazi or a Klansman, then you have to find other means to do that. And a lot of these are not really sophisticated people. So I use Facebook and I use Twitter and I use Instagram and I use Snapchat because they are easy for someone of my level of technological proficiency. I can't use Reddit. I have yet to figure it out, and I have tried. Don't tell me Donald Trump is going to be able to figure out how to use Reddit at 4 a.m. Or any of the Chans or anything on the dark web. That is beyond his level of proficiency. That's also beyond the level of proficiency of a lot of his followers and people who find him intriguing or engaging or think that the man who uses a gold toilet speaks for them. So he's going to lose a lot of influence. They are not taking away any of his. Facebook and Twitter have no authority over free speech. They are not public utilities, and they certainly don't have any impact over the free speech of Donald Trump because, as Thaddeus said, even as an ex-president, if he calls a TV station or Fox News and says, I have something to say, they're going to put him on. He's going to get to say it, and he's going to get to reach an audience. And the OAN network, that they exist purely to amplify his message. So it's a thing that's, he's not going away, but it's going to be less likely that his voice reaches to your mainstream soccer moms, your factory workers who are just doom scrolling on their phones before bed. They're not going to see him anymore. And that was a big part of his supporters. So,
Mike, a big part of losing Trump's prestige, this getting kicked off Twitter and Facebook?
Yes, absolutely, he'll be diminished. Now, that said, unfortunately, with people who believe similarly, a niche has to be filled. So I'm sure there's going to be some app out there that is going to replace Parler, is going to replace what he had on Twitter, and his followers, at least some of them, will find him there, and they'll have their own little hive of whatever they're going to do. But yeah, being removed from a major app like Twitter is significant because the rest of the country will not be exposed to that constantly, which is that's a major draw on our collective psyche. For me, it was just always painful to listen to or hear, and of course I would try to avoid it, but then sometimes I'm sucked right in because I want to tell the guy to go where, and so I think it's going to be a collective sigh of relief for much of the country. There's going to be some presence somewhere. It hopefully not on an app that becomes as mainstream as Twitter someday.
I just
Tyler.
Paul, I just
Yes.
wanted to add. I just wanted to add in here that a lot of people who make their living following this said now it's going to be harder to get this information, and they're going to have to spend more time finding out the new platform And we all know that journalism has such a limited resources now. Now they just said, now that it's pulled off the easy stuff, we're going to have to spend time finding out where in the hell they're talking. And I mean, and when I was listening to these guys talk, they were really like going, Jesus Christ, like I need more work to do my job. So that was my concern about pulling them off. And like I sent you that message, Paul, Merkel, she's not happy. EU's not happy. They said you cannot suppress maniacs' speech because then you have to work harder to find out what the maniac is saying. So just want to say that.
Okay, well, Tyler, do you think that being off Twitter is going to diminish Trump's influence, or like Mike said that he'll just go to another app, and then his steadfast loyal followers will just get that app?
I think that Trump has Trump is very much like the golden cow, right? That there will always be those who are going to worship him no matter where he is. But he is one that has fallen, and he's going to be replaced. Like he is, as much as this will pain him, there will be another golden cow that will get put up where Trump was. One who has not been barred and banned, and much to like what Dan said, like many of those who do follow him, those who carried his vote, were those who needed the ease and the luxury of the simple access, because it was Twitter. I mean, it was genius. It was genius. It was quick. It was instantaneous, and it was small snippets. There wasn't a lot of information you had to digest with Twitter, and that's why it was so easy to get that message and out and spewed. He's still on YouTube. However, everyone now has to sit through the really obnoxious commercials to get through his message on YouTube, which is going to dissuade a lot of users. And there's more streaming that you have to do to get there. So I mean, this is definitely going to put a huge barrier and a block. But honestly, if something like a connection with Epstein couldn't take him down, if that couldn't dissuade people from being linked to a child sex trafficker, this isn't going to dissuade people. It's going to be harder for them to follow him, but those who wanted to, there's just another. Trump is a pawn. He was always a pawn, and that's what it's almost like the irony in his leadership it's mind blowing to me. He was always a pawn. It was never about. He really thinks it was him, and it was never him. It was all the things that he allowed people to say and get away with. And to like feel entitled to do because the person, the highest seat in our country, did it. There's thousands of Trumps waiting behind the doors, ready to take his seat, who are probably better equipped to navigate. And like Pence, I think Pence, I don't know. No one will convince me that he wasn't more dangerous than Trump, because I think he was better versed and he could convince and sell a room better. But so that's just kind of how I am. Like, do I think that this will be a blow? Absolutely. But do I think that there are more dangerous people that are now ready to take the helm? Yes.
What kind of legal liability do you see for Don Jr. and Rudy when all the criminal indictments for the insurrection on January 6th are handed out, Tyler? Rudy and Don Jr.
Look, again, and I'll turn back to Epstein. Like, if anything happens to either one of them, they're gonna mysteriously commit suicide in prison. Like, that's what's gonna happen. Like, if anything ever happened to them, if they were ever held accountable, they know too many things. They'll just go. It'll be an accident. It'll be another accident. But I think that that's just wishful thinking on my end. There was just too many other people exposing other crimes that they could no longer hide that one. But this one, there's too much. There's a lot of money, and that's a lot of high up positions that can just make people go away for this stuff to kind of get held accountable.
Thaddeus, legal liability for Rudy and Don Jr., who urged the mob on?
Well, I can't really speak about Don Jr.'s exposure. I don't know exactly what criminal type things that he has actually done himself. It's pretty clear that Rudy Giuliani has broken about every rule in the Bar Association's book, and I understand that he has been disbarred as of now. So I know that his exposure is going to be pretty extensive, and so there is probably a prison cell somewhere being readied with his name on it. The whole crowd of them, I am sure, have various crimes, and it just depends on how much time we're going to devote to going after each and every person who's been involved in all this crap.
How about Don? How about President Trump? You think he might do time behind bars?
I would like to think so, but as slithery as he has been, he got past the voters in 2016, in a manner of speaking. And over and over and over again, he has done things that were considered beyond the pale until he did them, and he seems to have gotten away with them over and over again for the last 5 years. So if he goes to prison, it's going to be a long time from now, because they're going to drag this through the courts for years. He might not live long enough to actually be put behind bars. And as you just pointed out a moment ago, I expect that if at long last he were sentenced to go to prison and there were no possible outs, he's taken it to the highest court possible and he is still sentenced to prison, he would either immediately before being carted off to his cell, or slightly after, he would probably commit suicide himself.
Mike, do you think?
Excuse me. This is Mike W. If I was any part of a Trump Incorporated right now, I'd be Googling legal counsel for Pontius Pilate and Barabbas.
Mike B. What about Don Jr., Rudy, and Mr. President?
No,
you
let's
think they
see.
have a chance of facing any jail time?
I hope so. I have a feeling, though, that the greater collection of their offenses in other matters may get them first. Southern District of New York is hot for them, and maybe not Rudy so much, but the Trump family, yeah. As an aside, maybe they could do their prison time at Four Seasons Landscaping and Porn Shop.
What say you, Dan?
I want them all to go to prison, so I'll start with that. But I would not be a fair juror for any of their trials because I already believe that they are guilty. And I do think that is, given the nature of who these people are and what they're accused of doing by me and a lot of other voters, I think it might actually be hard to get a fair trial. Back in 16 and in 20, during the debates, whenever they would have, we're going to have a town hall debate with undecided voters, I just watched them and think, where are you finding these people? That's what the jury pool would look like. You would have to find people who don't actually have a pre-established opinion. And I think that will be a way to drag it out and wiggle out of jail time. The jury was prejudiced against me because you can't stack it with MAGA people. They're all going to quit. He could tear the head off a baby and take a bite out of it like an apple in the courtroom. And the MAGA people would be okay with that. As Tyler pointed out early in the very first question, rich, white, cis men are not held accountable. And Donald Trump has never faced a consequence for anything in his entire life. So that's one of the reasons why he's having such a petulant meltdown over this entire process. He's actually facing a consequence. He's losing. I think his speech his video about there will be an orderly transition of power was an attempt to limit legal liability. I don't know how effective it was, but there was nothing sincere about that whole thing. I don't know that any of them will actually see the inside of a prison. I'm okay if they die mysteriously by natural causes, I guess. That's
You talking
fine.
Jeffrey Epstein type of?
Yeah,
Make it look like an accident.
naturally caused bed sheets. Yeah. I will not shed tears for Don Jr., Rudy Giuliani, Don, Ivanka, or Eric. Tiffany and Barron are meh, and Melania is, I don't know, she's a figurehead. She's a puppet too. She has no official role. But yeah, the rest of them, they're just horrible, horrible people. I will not be sad to see them out of public life.
How much confidence do you have that the participants in the assault, the ones who actually made it into the Capitol building, will be held legally accountable, Dan?
Okay, well, Elizabeth from Knoxville is my new favorite human ever because her lack of self-awareness is just, it blows my mind that she
You'll have
really...
to tell us who she is.
Oh, Elizabeth from Knoxville is the young woman who was held down and maced by Capitol Police, so she claims. And when the reporter that she was telling all of this to asked, why did they hold you down and mace you? Her response was, we're storming the Capitol. It's a revolution. And she said it with this indignity, like, how could someone possibly be, how could the government that I'm trying to overthrow possibly have something to do with stopping me? My new favorite hobby is watching the videos of the insurrectionists discover that they are on no-fly lists. And their meltdowns are, it's a new kind of performance art. It's like reviews of the Cats movie. It's worth watching again and again and again just to see them break down. Watching these smug assholes be arrested one by one is just beautiful. I am sad that QAnon Shaman gets to eat his organic diet in prison, but whatever. He's the one who wore that outfit and got photographed doing it. But yeah, these people are, they caught themselves. Like, I don't commit a lot of crime. I certainly don't go around committing treason. But if I did, I wouldn't videotape myself doing it. I wouldn't put it on the internet.
Good point. Good point.
And I certainly wouldn't use my real name. And in this era where we all wear masks for our health, you know, maybe if I was going to go commit a crime, I might wear a mask to conceal my identity. But these people didn't think about that because they really didn't think there were going to be any consequences. They thought they could take hostages, maybe hang some elected officials, maybe murder some law enforcement, and then just go back to work on Monday. Like, they really were not expecting any pushback at all. And I find it delicious watching them get arrested. I also think it is a true thing of beauty that they planned their insurrection out on Parler. They used a social media app that prided itself for having no moderation to plan, I'm going to bring the guns. I'll bring the restraints. I'll bring the material to build a gallows for the vice president. And they put it in writing and they put it on the internet. And they thought they deleted it. The FBI is just going through all of those deleted posts and picking these idiots up one by one by one. These are not smart people. These are not international assassin types. This is not a highly sophisticated cabal. the people manipulating them, they're pretty smart and they're good at manipulating people. But these are not sophisticated people. They do need to have consequences. Actions have consequences. But the live action role playing that they did when they tried to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer was that was like the dress rehearsal for this one. They improved what they were trying to do. They got closer to their goal this time. People actually died as a result of these actions, and that's horrible. But this was not like the storming of the Bastille that they think it was. This was a huge embarrassment, and these people should feel ashamed, but mostly they should go to jail.
Okay, go to jail. Tyler, do you agree?
Yeah, you know what blows my mind is how, you know, being elected in local government and then working for the local government. I had spent about 8 years working for the Office of Children and Youth, investigating a lot of things, and I've had to like rehash a lot of it out in trauma therapy. But coming through and watching the nonviolent crimes and how these offenders sit in prison for often crimes of poverty, and our jails are full of them, and there are, you know, notes in cases, and the police know who they are for sometimes years before they ever move on these cases, and to kind of go to what Dan said, it like blows my mind. This wasn't secret plotting. There was nothing like well done about this at all. None of this had to happen. And the case, they built the case for them. It was like they just like wrote the officer's notes and handed it. Like, here you go. Now, like, the only thing that was missing was the arrest at the moment. But it blows my mind, and I think it goes. And I don't want us to lose sight on the maliciousness of the justice system, that all of them walked out. They walked out. Except for those who were shot, you know, after they were warned several times to not come in. They walked away. And we have people who write bad checks and are murdered in the street with no buildup. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just like, I don't want us to lose sight of how glaring of a white privilege situation that we witnessed and unfolded, and how disgusting it is on so many levels. So yes, I absolutely think that they should be incarcerated, and let's, you know, there's already warmed up beds, and let's do a little bit of retribution here and let those people go who didn't commit violent crimes, and make space for those who are actually committing things like Dan said, treason. How about we use that system, what it was built for, and put the real criminals, the ones who are actually doing harm to our nation, where they should be.
That's what you want. Do you think that will happen?
No, that's
Okay.
what I want. Yeah.
Okay. Thaddeus, what do you think about this? Think those people were going to be caught and held accountable justifiably?
Well, it certainly would be justified to lock the whole pack of them up for various amounts of time, of course. Looking at the reports of the last few days, you know, the fact that law enforcement is catching up with these people, it is giving us the satisfaction of seeing people pulled off the street and arrested. There's a big crowd of people. We'd have to build a new prison to put them in. And I would think, and I do have confidence, that they're looking for key people. They're looking for organizers, people who, you know, initiated the online roundtables that got these things going, the people who volunteered to really rally other people. So those are the people who I think need to be, and I pretty much expect we're going to see them put away for significant time.
That information was pretty much secured by that woman who took all this parlor data
Yeah.
and kept it.
Data stream.
She's a hero.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, Mike, what do you think? You think this is going to happen? That these people are going to be held accountable?
You know, my confidence in that at first was very low because I thought, how are you going to identify people when they're all covered up in gray jackets and hoods over their heads and so forth? But the more and more,
Because they didn't have any
they
masks
wouldn't
on.
wear masks. They were just, and they were bragging about it on the internet. They
I
thought
know.
they won.
I know, but still.
Here, let me
Yeah, when I
tag
heard-
myself doing this treason.
Yeah, right. But that was my first impression. But then when I heard about that data scrape from Parler by that woman, she became my new favorite person ever. And in fact, I thanked her. In fact, unfortunately, I didn't realize it was a woman. So I said, buddy, you are a rock star. Thank you. So it's like, okay. But still, the point is, she downloaded 7 terabytes and boom, there it was. So the fact that information was available and I understood that that's what helped the FBI get the no-fly list going so quickly. I have more confidence that at least more of them will. You won't get everybody. It's just like the roach problem we've been having in our house on occasion recently. We get some of them. And we finally had to call our exterminator to get the rest. And we might have to have him come back because I've still found a couple. The point is, you know, like, hey, humility, right? No, but the point is, yeah, I'm more confident. I know we're not going to get everybody, but I'm more confident, and I'm hoping that the volume of arrests and incarcerations will be enough to show the world that we are serious about excising our society from that crap.
You know, I have to say that, you know, we're closing on the end of this discussion, but I'm starting to feel pretty good about the future just based on what I'm hearing from you guys, especially about these people doing some time here. All right, now the last question here. I've been hearing speeches from politicians saying, this isn't us. This isn't America. And I say, really? What America have you seen? Since 1619, over 400 years, Black people have suffered violence from institutionalized white oppression. This riot is just the latest example of white bigots claiming that Black votes should not be counted. I am sick of hearing about American exceptionalism because 74 million of us just voted for the worst person in American history. I'm ashamed and embarrassed by America. The question is, am I overreacting to these events by feeling this way? Thaddeus, we're going to start with you.
I'll say, you are not overreacting. Listen to the commentaries that we get from leaders and commentators of other countries around the world. The United States in the last 4 years has become a laughingstock and a pariah among nations. We used to be, if not loved, at least respected everywhere in the world. And now the opinion of America doesn't count. So yeah, we have been dealt a big blow. We've been taken down about 16 pegs. You know, the tragedy of what's happened lately is, I think, beyond all of our expectations. But you know, I just think at the end of all of this, they say, we have to heal, we have to heal. And some people say, well, we have to heal by just papering over what just happened. And yeah, I agree. No, I'm seeing all these heads going, no, I agree. And I say, you know, number one, and some people will agree with me, we cannot begin to heal until this man is gone, number one. And number two, we will never begin to heal if he and all of the other people who have done this to our nation go unpunished. We have to finally stand up as a nation and say, okay, yeah, we're claiming that this isn't us, but we have to find a national identity in which that kind of action no longer represents what we really are.
Tyler,
I'll tell
what
you
say
this.
you about this?
Listening to everyone and this question, every time I read it or when I hear it, I vacillate between extreme sadness and like rage. Being a queer, non-binary person, the amount of shit that I face on a daily basis is astronomical. But the world sees and perceives me as a white male. I know this. And so I'm able to navigate through most of my interactions with little barriers. This country was built on humiliation, robbery, slavery, the backs of others, not especially, on indigenous and Black people. And for us to remotely entertain that this is an America, all it does is highlight our privilege and highlight our ignorance and shows the world that we are nowhere near. And like what Dana said, this is eliminating President Trump does not fix or solve all, and especially when someone says this, we're better than this. We have never risen to our potential ever, and that is still in a distant future. I think more of us are believing and starting to learn what the potential could be, but America has never been what we have promised it to be, ever. Only for a few, and those few quickly figured out how to build and take from others so that they could remain in power. People don't become billionaires or millionaires. They take and become. Like that's not something that is earned. That is taken, and that is what our country has been founded on. And I can get really amped up and ramped up about this question because it's ignorant. It just to even think that, not that your question wasn't ignorant, I'm sorry, like the sentiment around that this is in America is ignorant, and it causes further harm and further divide with those who have endured the crap since the inception of this country. And it eliminates the indigenous and the native history, and it eliminates the slavery and the families that we have single-handedly continued to rip apart and still rip apart with our prison system and our child welfare system. And so I think that you are not one iota of disproportionately angered by that sentiment. And if you're not disgusted by that sentiment, I become more enraged with you. Like if that doesn't bother you, I no longer trust you as a person.
Mike.
Yeah, to echo Tyler, said it very eloquently. I think the perception of this question is going to be different depending on who the person is. If it's a person of privilege, they're going to look at this and be aghast and say, but. If if it's a person who is a minority that has experienced or continues to experience oppression, they're going to say, oh, hell yeah. And, here I am, I am a white male that, I'm clueless, frankly. I'm learning little bits and pieces as I go. I certainly have my own experience as a minority, not just that I'm left-handed, but I don't know the full experience. And it's so easy to sweep the discomfort under the rug, and that's the sad part. I think, if anything, the experiences of the last 4 years that have crescendoed to last Wednesday, I hope will bring some awareness to folks who are uncomfortable by this. And I appreciate the Black Lives Matter movement and other movements that are trying to bring awareness and trying to make things better for people who don't have a fair shake. I'd love to somehow learn more and get involved. I mean, the tiniest step I took, for example, I'm not doing this to pat myself on the back, but I just joined a diversity and inclusion committee at work and I said, the reason why I joined is like, there was so much I don't know and I want to learn more. It's like, I want to be of some kind of help. I don't know what I can do to help, but, to see something like this, like, okay, how do we repair this? How do we make a better foundation for a better future? That, it can be very intimidating and it's like, oh my gosh, but you know what? There are millions of people who, I think as long as we can all influence the people around us with awareness and be open to learning more, then that little bit gets better and just maybe nudges it along a little more. But, I'm fascinated by what I've heard here tonight and just love to connect with you separately. So I'm going to look you all up on Facebook if I'm not your friends already.
You're not going to see me on Facebook ever. So
no? Okay, well, I'll talk to you here then. I know your phone number. But
okay, Dan, what do you think about this? What I just cited about him. Oh, America is just so great. We're the greatest country in the world, and I call bullshit. What do you say?
America is kind of horrible to a lot of people. And several of us have brought up the idea of privilege. Privilege is not having to think about where all these things come from. Like, I'm a white male. I don't have to think about what a woman or a person of color or a trans person has to go through on a daily basis. I may be gay, so I do have that bit of outside and that struggle, but that is nothing compared to my whiteness and my maleness. That takes 95% of the obstacles right out of my way. So I don't have to think about those. And I want to think about those and I want to learn about those so that I can possibly help. And I have overstepped my bounds and I have been, not intentionally, but I've tried to be the white savior in the past, and that was not reacted to well. And that was my fault for overstepping. That was not the person of color that I was trying to give assistance to's fault that they reacted the way that they did to me attempting to help.
Did they feel like you were condescending to them? That you were, you just because you're white and you're special, and they weren't, they felt, he's trying to impose some superiority on me? Was that the impression they had?
I think that was part of it, but the lesson that I learned was if I'm trying to help someone who did not necessarily ask, was just venting to the world that this is the situation I'm dealing with and I don't know how to deal with it, the correct response is not to mansplain, oh, this is what you need to do. This is how you take care of that. That will universally be reacted to poorly, and I learned a lesson about it. But I'm getting a little bit off topic. We are exactly the horrible people that have been described. That Joe Biden wants us to say, this is not us, we are better than this. No, we are exactly this, and we need to take a look in the mirror. And it is uncomfortable, and a lot of us don't want to do that because it is extremely uncomfortable. I don't like looking at myself for my own flaws, but that is privilege. We don't have to. And a lot of these people who are so upset and so intent on defending American exceptionalism, they don't want to see their own flaws. I didn't own a slave. My grandfather didn't own a slave. So what could I possibly do to hurt Black people? Like, that's not the way that systemic oppression works, but they think of it like that. and they don't like having that mirror held up to them. And I think that we did a wonderful thing in November when we elected Kamala Harris Vice President of the United States. I think 4 years ago we should have broken that barrier for women, but I didn't get outvoted. I got electorally colleged out of that, according to the laws of our country.
Me too, buddy. Me too.
But I think we are trying to take steps in the right direction. I do not blame the people who are further down the social ladder than I am when they feel that it does not go fast enough, because I don't suffer the way that they suffer. And back in 2016, when it was the contest between Hillary and Bernie, one of the articles that I read that compared the two had a piece of advice for political candidates that I try to follow. When you are looking to see who the most progressive candidate is, regardless of what their position on the issues is, regardless of what they've done in the past, you want to look to who are the African-American women looking at. Because they will always be flocking to the most progressive candidate, in the sense of this person will be able to get things done and this person won't make my life harder. And since then, that's how I try to look at it. So where do the women of color go? That's who I'm going to follow, because I think that's going to be how I can help the most.
Good leadership direction from the women of color. Mike W. Thank everybody. Tyler, Thad, Dan, Mike, and of course you too, Mr. Webb, for being so patient with us and doing such a great job in editing. As far as the next corner goes, I have no idea what the topic is. This kind of recent event overwhelming me like that made me think that I just can't think beyond tomorrow. So to those of you who are waiting for the next episode, we'll let you know when we get there. Until then, bye now.
Good night, everybody.